We want to go ahead and bring Bill Anderson into our conversation. He's a specialist on local government finance and operations with the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, SEMCOG as it's known. Bill, thank you for being with us here on the MegaCast.
It's a pleasure.
We are 8 months into this pandemic, and I think that you are a person who is definitely a need right now for so many of our local governments, because how is the overall impact of COVID-19 and this pandemic and this crisis? What is going to be the overall impact on our local governments?
Well, SEMCOG is a regional planning organization, and our focus is on transportation issues. But one of the things you have to do when you're going to invest billions of dollars in roads, you need to know how the economy works, what are the demographics of the region. And as we have seen COVID-19 become this reality that's ingraining itself into the economy, what we're starting to do is starting to ask questions. Well, what is the economy going to look like when this is all said and done? We go out onto the roads today, and we notice there's a lot fewer cars out on the roads because so many of us are sitting here on Zoom doing our work at home, and that has an impact on what's going on. But when we look at the long-term impacts of COVID-19, I'll use as an example, my mother is in an independent living facility, and of course they've been locked into their apartments for a while, since April. They're not doing congregate meals and those kinds of things. Well, what's this going to mean for the future? And for instance, how we build these kinds of facilities? Back in the year 2000, we had twice as many kids under the age of 18 as we had people over the age of 65. Within 5 years, by 2025, that number in our region, within the 7-county region of SEMCOG, is going to be equal. There's going to be as many seniors as there are kids in our region. By 2045, we're going to have 3 times as many people age 85 or older. Can you imagine what COVID-19 would be like if we had 3 times as many truly elderly, vulnerable people? Well, some of the things that we may be looking at are, for instance, when we build, independent living facilities and nursing homes. I look at my mother's, and it didn't dawn on me until this was going on. All of her heating and air conditioning comes directly from outside in her apartment. So she has her own furnace, her own air conditioner that brings the air in. Now, as a son, I'm thinking that's a real good thing, because if there's any COVID virus around, at least that's not circulating into her apartment from the rest of the building. So it's simple little things like that that are going to be happening. But on a broader scale, when we look at what the business community is going to be like, and we look at, say, office buildings, what our office is going to be like in the future. We have a lot of office space, Troy, Bloomfield, downtown Detroit, Southfield, but a lot of companies are not going to be bringing all those white-collar workers back into the office when COVID-19 gets done. So now we have to look at things like internet connections, making sure that we really beef up the internet, because so many people are going to continue to work from home even once COVID-19 changes. It also changes, where are we going to live in the future? Now it may not be as important to live within 15 miles of your workplace or within 15 minutes of your workplace. You may be 2 hours away from your workplace because you only go there a couple times a month.
Yeah, think about 75, the construction on I-75. how many multi-millions of dollars of taxpayer dollar is going in to that freeway to widen it. And now you're not going to have the traffic coming and going on 75 on that stretch.
And these are some of the things, when we plan, for instance, we just adopted the 2045 plan. We are looking at the needs of our region in 2045, because when you're looking at things like roads, you have to plan that far in the future. But now you have to kind of take a step back and saying, we had some real basic assumptions. And the world changed 8 months ago. I mean, and the chairperson of the Fed said, you know what? Our economy has changed forever because of this. And so, yeah, we have to step back and start saying, what will, our economy look like in 2045 or 2050 when we begin work on the new plan? And where are people going to be working? How are they going to commute? What times do they commute? We build our roads based on the fact that we have a rush hour in the morning and the afternoon. Well, that can change. We have maps. If anybody ever wants to see some interesting maps, go to SEMCOG.org. And for instance, we have a map that has every building within 7 counties on the map, listing when it was built, square footage, all the basics of it, all the commercial buildings. Is it a retail building? Is it an office building? How many square feet is it? We need all that information to try and figure out where people are commuting from. We know this many employees have to go into Troy every morning. So we have to, we have the world's greatest computer program, the biggest SimCity program you've ever seen, to figure out where everybody literally goes every day. That's changing. And that has a change for road usage, for sewer and water, for broadband basics. These are all basic issues that governments are going to have to deal with.
Yeah, and on top of that, how long will it be before people are comfortable going back to a Lions game or a concert at Ford Field? I think we're looking at a few years out before we start to see that our pre-normal, as people like to call it, before we get back to that comfort level.
And it's other things too, like for instance, childcare. Everybody is dealing with kids at home, no daycares open because of concerns over COVID. But, in some ways, it also makes us understand those with low incomes that are raising families, the challenges that they've had, where it's not because they don't necessarily have daycare, they can't afford daycare. And now you understand the struggle when you're trying to work your way beyond poverty. When you have a family, you have to balance this issue of, I don't have daycare for my kids, how can I go to my job? Well, now it's not just a low income kind of issue, it's an everyday occurrence for anybody with a family. So we're really learning about that, and maybe it's going to give us more insight to better deal with that in the future.
Bill Anderson with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast. He's the specialist on local government finance and operations for the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. Bill, just about 2 more minutes with you here on the Oakland County MegaCast. What do you want the listeners and the viewers to know about you and your team and the work that you're doing and how you've had to shift what you're doing during this time?
As the regional planning agency, we bring in local government officials from across 7 counties, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, Livingston, St. Clair, Washtenaw, and Monroe County. We've had to go to a completely virtual environment. We work from home. Normally our office, we could have been watching the Thanksgiving Day parade because it's right on Woodward in downtown Detroit. But with concerns, we're lucky that we had the technology that we could literally within a week shift into a completely virtual mode. But we're like everybody else, you know, we've got numerous people with families that during the workday, you know, they're watching their 7-year-old, you know, on their computer as they're taking their computer classes while they're trying to work. So what we are looking at is trying to understand how is the world changing, and trying to make sure that all those local government officials that we work with are going to be better prepared in the future to make sure that we can adapt to the new reality, and also to hopefully be better prepared should something like this occur again in the future.
Yeah, because as you said, you're making plans for 40 years out, 20, 25 years out. Makes it, you don't have a crystal ball. So it can make it a little hard for you and your team and our elected leaders to also navigate this crisis and the future of this crisis.
Yeah, it really is, what is the new reality? And as you said, how do we get people back to work? How do we get, you know, all the numbers are showing the hardest hit group is working mothers because they have to deal with kids at home and then trying to maintain a job. That's a major issue within the economy. And we all have to try and figure out how this economy is going to function in the future. And there's going to be some really good things that come out of this. And we're going to have to identify some real holes to fill, besides potholes.
Well, we have plenty of those, although I will say one thing that could be the positive for the state of Michigan: not as many people driving, which means a little bit less wear and tear on the roadways, which could mean fewer potholes.
And less revenue coming in from the gas tax to fill the potholes.
See, there's always so many different angles, and this is impacting us on so many levels. Great to have you with us here on the Oakland County MegaCast. Bill Anderson, he's a specialist on local governments, finance and operations for the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. Thank you for being with us, and happy holidays to you and your family as well.
And I'm looking forward to those cookies in the garage.